Good morning and welcome to Biblical Theology, our biblical preaching. We're dealing with a theology book today. I've read other volumes in the 40 Questions series published by Kriegel Academic. This one is my favorite so far, 40 Questions about Pastoral Ministry by Phil A. Newton. As with the other volumes in the series, it is written by a Baptist. I say that just to make the reader aware that the book is coming from a Baptist perspective with the requisite denunciation of paedobaptism. The book is divided as follows. Part 1, Foundational Questions, questions 1 through 5. In this section, Newton answers the definition of a pastor, the definition of pastoral ministry, the qualities of a Christian pastor, how this relates to Jesus, and whether it's better to have a plurality of pastors. In the final section of this part, Newton answers whether there ought to be a plurality of pastors, and by this he means, should there be an elder who functions as the primary preaching and teaching elder, as well as other elders who help the pastor not to go astray and also be teachers themselves? The answer is yes, and it seems to me that the answer would be yes in many denominations, but with different terminology. And make sure you recognize the different terminology used in some places. Part 2 is Pastoral Development and Health, questions 6 through 13. In this section, Newton answers questions about how the pastor can care for himself and his family spiritually and in relation to one another. Part 3 is Pastoral Practices, questions 14 through 20. Here, Newton gives the answers to how a minister should begin his ministry, how to be sustained in ministry, both in self-care and dealing with others who may cause problems for the pastor and his congregation. Part 4 is on pastoral preaching, questions 21 through 28. Newton then addresses how a pastor should preach, including arguing for lectio continuo over against lectionary or topical series. He also looks at how a pastor should conduct worship, funerals, and weddings. Part 5, the church and pastoral ministry, questions 29 through 40. In the final section, Newton defines the church, looks at the authority of Scripture, how and when to make changes, how to practice church discipline, polity, and membership practices, and church revitalization. He also answers how to help a church face suffering, support missions, and considers when a pastor should leave a church and why having a long pastorate is a best practice. Each chapter ends with a summary of the chapter and several questions for personal or group reflection. This book ends with a selected bibliography and a scripture index. I'm impressed with this book and with the answers that Newton gives. He is very thorough, yet very readable and useful for the pastor and the board of elders, if not others as well. Throughout the book, and second or third to the scripture, Newton quotes from Puritan sources. I highly value the Puritan writers as godly and biblical people, and I'm thankful when I see their work being used by others. I consider this a tremendous book, one that would be well given to seminary students for them to work through before walking into a church and working with them. These are issues that need to be thought through before walking into a church and that you've received a call to. So I recommend it highly.